Hi, I'm Nicholas, and in this screencast I'm going to demonstrate how to use FluidDB's RESTful API with the fluiddb.py Python module. I'm assuming you're a developer who's familiar with the HTTP protocol and RESTful web services, and that you've watched our other screencasts or read the documentation to get a high-level view of the concepts and terminology we're going to be using. It's important to note that fluiddb.py is based upon the work done by Sio Sangyeon in his FluidFS project, where FluidDB is used as a fuse-based file system. I've simply extracted some really useful code and modified it a little. So let's start by setting things up and installing the module. So the first thing I'm going to do is make a virtual environment. This basically isolates everything I'm about to do, so if I make a mess or break anything, I can easily clean it up. Now that that's sorted out, I'm going to install the module. There are a couple of ways of doing this. You could use pip and easy install, or you could grab the source code from GitHub. So how do I check that it's installed properly? Well, I simply drop it into the Python shell and import it. Nice and simple. That's worked. So what do I get in this module? Well, the constants main and sandbox define where the two instances of FluidDB can be found. Main is of course the main FluidDB instance, and sandbox is used for testing and demos. By default, fluiddb.py will use the main instance. We want to use the sandbox, so we just need to change the instance to sandbox. Instance. Like that. The call method sends a request to FluidDB, and login and logout methods do exactly what you'd expect. You can safely ignore the rest. So to start with, we should log in with the test user account. So the username is test, the first argument, and the second argument is the password, which in this case is test. And let's check that we can get something back from FluidDB. I'll use pretty printing to make things easy for us. Cool. So I'm making a call with the call method, and I'm passing a path to a resource. Users. This call should get me back information about the test user. Obviously we get back headers. Let's quickly take a look at these. No surprises here, since these are standard HTTP headers. As for the content, it's a Python dictionary. As you can see, we've got the ID of the FluidDB object representing the user test, and their real name, also test in this case. In fact, the output of the HTTP call is actually JSON, and the fluiddb.py module has translated that into a Python dictionary. In general, fluiddb.py looks after translating values to and from the JSON that's sent down the wire to a value of the appropriate Pythonic type. The exception is opaque tag types, where you should check the content type header to work out how to handle the content. For example, if the content type is application PDF, you'll know to handle the content as a PDF document. If anything goes wrong, take a look at the headers. For example, let's try requesting information about a non-existent user. As you can see, we get a 404 and lots of useful information. The xFluidDB request ID header uniquely identifies the request and is useful if you think you found a bug, since it'll help us identify problematic requests in our logs. xFluidDB error class tells you what FluidDB reported as the error. In this case, no such user. You get the idea. That's the basics of installing and using fluiddb.py covered. In part 2, we'll take a look at how the module works and how this relates to the API.